The rain fell in fine needles that morning, washing over the streets like a reminder that nothing would be easy for Lena Harper. Her breath came sharp as she hurried, her tote bag pressed close against her chest, as though she could hide her trembling. Hard inside it, she was 26, jobless, nearly out of money, and this interview was the last thin rope she could cling to. She wore a gray blazer too big on her shoulders, borrowed from her cousin, who had smiled apologetically when handing it. Over her slacks were short, showing her bare ankles to the cold drizzle, and on her feet the black pumps that had already lived longer than they should have, their thin heels glued together by hope and desperation, the glue failing even before she reached the tall glass tower of Caldwell and Ross. She turned the corner too fast, collided with a stranger. Her papers spilled like broken wings across the wet concrete. Her knees scraped the ground, and in that instant the heel of her right shoe snapped off with a sound that cut through her chest. The man she crashed into stood tall beneath his umbrella, his suit pressed to perfection, his watch gleaming, his expression unreadable. Lena muttered through the sting of water and humiliation, telling him he should watch where he was going. His reply was calm. Maybe slow down before blaming others, and he walked past her, leaving her crouched in the rain, her broken shoe in her hand, her breath uneven. She wanted to cry, wanted to give up, but then she looked up at the glass building ahead, the name carved in steel above its doors. She thought of her mother, of the night's waiting tables, of the bills stacked like walls she could not climb. She stood barefoot, her shoes tucked into her bag, the wet pavement cold against her skin, and walked forward. Inside the lobby, whispers rose like smoke-polished. Men and women in tailored suits stared at her, their eyes sharp, their voices low. Some laughed. One woman pulled out her phone, pretending to fix her lipstick but really catching a photo. Lena felt the sting but kept walking. She sat tall, clutching her broken shoes in her lap, her cheeks burning, her back straight. When her name was called, she rose barefoot and walked down the hall, every step a reminder of her humiliation, every step also a defiance. When the interview room opened, she froze, for there at the end of the table sat the man from the rain, Julian Sloan, the CEO of Caldwell and Ross. His expression gave nothing away, no recognition, no mockery, just calm, watchful silence. She forced herself to walk in and sit before him, her hands shaking beneath the table. The questions came fast about her lack of experience, her gaps in work, her small community college degree. She answered honestly. She told them about caring for her mother through cancer, about choosing her medication over school, about waiting tables, designing logos, doing whatever she could. She did not decorate her answers. She gave truth, bare and trembling. Then came the question, why barefoot? She looked at Julian directly and said, my only shoes broke outside. I could have turned back, but I came anyway. And when they asked why Caldwell and Ross, she said, because if I can belong here where even my shoes do not, then maybe there is hope for people like me. The silence that followed pressed against her chest. Julian watched her, his eyes unreadable, then softer, not with pity, but with recognition. When the interview ended, he only said, thank you, Miss Harper, that will be all. She walked out barefoot and uncertain. Days later, she held her badge, the plastic kuhl, in her hand, proof that she had been chosen among 33 others. Whispers followed her. The barefoot girl, they called her. Some said she had blackmail. Some said she was a symbol of lowered standards. She worked harder to bury their voices. She stayed late, triple-checked her work, yet the whispers clung like shadows. Then small things began to appear. A tea bag left on her desk with a note. Stay strong. You are tougher than most. A pair of Geel inserts in a bag. No note, but left with thoughtfulness, tissues tied with twine and words written in a slanted hand. Do not let perfect people fool you. They break too. She knew who left them. Julian Sloan, the man who said little but whose silence carried weight. Mistakes came too, like the time she sent a broken report across the company. Her heart ready to resign, but Julian only said, mistakes are free lessons, just do not skip class. Still, not everyone forgave her presence. Rebecca Langley, sharp and powerful, mocked her in meetings, suggesting she had climbed not by work, but by falling into the right lap. Lena endured her silence, but one day in the cafeteria, Julian sat across from her without a word, only his presence like a shield. The room noticed whispers bent and shifted. People who never looked her way began to nod. Offer bagels. Sit closer. The tide not fully changed, but moving. Then Julian gave her a task no one believed she could manage, an international partnership event. Rebecca protested, said the stakes were too high. Julian said, if she fails, it is on me. The weight of that sentence nearly crushed Lena. But she worked day and night when the day came. She stood before executives, and her voice, though soft, carried. She spoke of trust. She switched to Japanese words her mother once sang, her tongue steady and strong. Trust is not about polished shoes. It is about honest steps. Silence fell, then applause. Julian clapped first. The deal was sealed. Respect earned. But storms always rise. A photo of Lena and Julian leaked through the office, a grainy image of him offering her a handkerchief during her grief after her mother passed. She had come to the office, lost in sorrow, sat alone until he found her, sat beside her. The photo told no truth. Only rumor whispered benefits, favoritism, scandal. The hallways, colder emails, shorter invitations vanished. She felt the shift cut deeper than before. Yet she remembered the day her shoes broke, remembered the pavement cold against her feet. She had walked barefoot, then she would walk again. She endured days of silence, glances like knives, Rebecca's words. Sharper still, people like you are replaceable. She hissed in a hallway. Lena wanted to fight back, but Julian appeared behind them. His voice calm. We do not judge people by their shoes here. We judge them by what they walk through. Rebecca froze. Her power cracked. Lena said nothing, but inside her heart surged, not with fear, but with strength. The partnership event secured. The whispers had begun to die, but the photo rumors reignited. They painted her as weak, as opportunistic. Yet she knew the truth, that she had sat with grief in silence, and that someone had seen her, not as broken but as human. She worked late nights, finished reports, carried tasks no one else wanted. She sat in the restroom at times, crying quietly where no one would see, then wiped her face, returned to her desk stronger each time. The office began to shift again. Some nodded when she passed, some asked her opinion. The cafeteria no longer silent when she entered, and Julian, though he never said more than necessary, watched her with eyes not of pity but of recognition, of someone who walked barefoot into fire and kept walking. One afternoon, after the storm of whispers, she found another note on her desk. Small, simple, written in that same hand. You are here because you walked, not because anyone carried you. Lena read it again and again, and smiled. Her journey had begun with broken shoes, with laughter at her expense, with whispers sharp enough to cut skin. But she had not turned back. She had not hidden. She had walked forward, even barefoot, and in doing so, she had not only found work, she had found strength. She had found the proof that courage is not in polished shoes or flawless resumes. It is in showing up when the world tells you not to. It is in standing when your feet bleed. It is in speaking truth when silence would be easier. And so Lena Harper, though still uncertain, though still whispered about, though still human and breakable, stood taller than ever. Not because she was chosen by Julian Sloan, but because she chose to walk through every storm, every door, every whisper, and still arrive.